The champagne cork popped at exactly 7:43 p.m. Uncle Mike didn't ask permission. He just stood up at my mother's 60th birthday dinner and announced to the entire restaurant that I had sold a patent for $3.8 million. My parents went completely silent. Not the proud kind of silent. The terrified kind. Because Uncle Mike didn't know that my parents told everyone I worked at a hardware store. He didn't know they had been lying about me for 6 years. And he definitely didn't know that the patent he was congratulating me for was built entirely without their help, after they stole my college fund to bail out my brother for the 3rd time. The look on my mother's face wasn't pride. I panicked. And I realized at that moment that I wasn't just successful. It was evidence of a crime they thought they had buried. Drop a comment and let me know where you are listening from and what time it is for you right now. I would love to know who is part of our community. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We appreciate your support and thank you for being part of our community. Most daughters would feel vindicated when a wealthy uncle publicly celebrates their success at a family party. But I am a mechanical engineer specializing in industrial valve systems. I deal with pressure, flow rates, and catastrophic failure points for a living. Emotion is a luxury I cannot afford. What I felt in that moment was not joy. It was a structural collapse. That is the engineering term for when a system that has been hiding a fatal flaw finally gives way under the weight of its own lies. I sat at that long table in the private dining room, surrounded by aunts and uncles and cousins I barely knew, watching my father's face turn the color of old concrete. My mother grabbed his wrist under the table. Her knuckles were white. Her smile was stretched so thin I could see the muscles in her jaw twitching. Uncle Mike was still talking, his voice booming with genuine pride, holding his glass high. He was saying something about how I was a chip off the old block, how my father must be so proud, how brilliance runs in the family. My brother Austin was sitting directly across from me. He was wearing a designer suit I knew he couldn't afford. He looked at me with eyes that said, "Don't you dare." But I wasn't the one talking. Uncle Mike was. And he was about to make this so much worse. Uncle Mike is my father's older brother. He is the one who made it out, the one who built a software company in the 90s and sold it before the bubble burst. He is loud, generous, and dangerously oblivious to family politics. He lives in California. He only comes back to Ohio for the big occasions. He had no idea that in this family, my name was not spoken with pride. It was spoken in whispers, if it was spoken at all. He raised his glass higher. "To Jenna," he shouted. "The first millionaire in the family. I knew when you were a kid taking apart every appliance in the house that you were going somewhere. Your dad used to brag about you all the time. Remember, Donovan? You said she was going to be the one to put the family name on the map." My father, Donovan, made it sound like he was choking on ice. My mother, Beverly, laughed. It was a high, brittle sound, like glass breaking in slow motion. She stood up quickly, too quickly, and tried to redirect. "Mike, that is so sweet, but let's not make tonight about business. This is Mom's night. Let's talk about her, not work." But Uncle Mike was already pulling out his phone. No, I want to show everyone. I saw the article in Industry Week. They featured her design. The modular pressure valve for deep sea drilling. It's genius. Jenna, do you have a copy of the contract? I bet everyone would love to see it. The air in the room changed. It was like someone had sucked all the oxygen out and replaced it with something thicker, something poisonous. I looked at my mother. She was staring at me with a look I had seen before. It was the same look she gave me when I was 17 and I told her I wanted to study engineering. It was the look that said, "You are embarrassing me. Stop." But I didn't say anything. I didn't have to, because Uncle Mike was still talking. I mean, selling a patent at 29? That's unheard of. Most engineers spend their whole careers chasing one good idea. And you did it before 30. Donovan, you must have helped her with the funding, right? I know how expensive R&D is. Did you invest early on? My father opened his mouth. No sound came out. My brother Austin leaned forward, his voice sharp and desperate. Uncle Mike, seriously, can we not do this right now? Jenna doesn't like talking about money. It's tacky. Uncle Mike laughed. Tacky? Kid, we're family. There's no shame in celebrating success. Jenna, seriously, how did you fund the prototypes? I know you didn't have investor backing at first. Did your parents help you get started? I looked at my father. I looked at my mother. I looked at my brother, who was sweating now, his expensive suit suddenly looking like a costume he didn't know how to wear. And I realized something in that moment. They were terrified because Uncle Mike was about to expose something they had worked very hard to bury. They were terrified because I was supposed to be small. I was supposed to stay quiet, stay in the background, maybe send a check at Christmas, but never, ever be the center of attention. Because the center of attention means questions. And questions mean answers. And answers mean the truth. I picked up my water glass. My hand did not shake. I took a slow, deliberate sip. The water was cold. It tasted like clarity. I set the glass down. I smiled at Uncle Mike. And I said, actually, Uncle Mike, my parents didn't help me at all. I funded the prototypes myself. I worked 3 jobs while finishing my degree because my college fund disappeared my senior year. The silence that followed was not quiet. It was a vacuum. It was the sound of a lie suffocating under the weight of the truth. Uncle Mike's smile faltered. He looked at my father, confused. Disappeared? What do you mean disappeared? I kept my voice calm, clinical, like I was explaining a valve failure to a client. I mean that in December of my senior year at MIT, my parents withdrew $127,000 from my college fund and used it to pay off Austin's gambling debts and legal fees from his DUI. I had to take out loans for my last semester. I graduated with $83,000 in debt. But I graduated. And then I built my patent on my own. My mother made a sound like a wounded animal. She grabbed my father's arm, her nails digging into his jacket. Jenna, stop. This is not the time or place. But I wasn't done. Because Uncle Mike was staring at my father now, and his face was no longer confused. I was horrified. Donovan, Uncle Mike said slowly, his voice dropping to something dangerous. Is that true? Did you take her college fund? To understand why I didn't stop there, why I didn't just let the question hang in the air and walk away, you have to understand the architecture of our family. This wasn't a sudden betrayal. This was the demolition phase of a structure that had been rotting for years. From the moment I was accepted to MIT at 16, I was a problem to be managed. The Harpers are what people call middle-class drivers. That usually just means we look successful on the outside, but we are drowning in debt and lying on the inside. My father sold insurance. My mother ran a small interior design business that never made a profit. But they drove new cars. They lived in a big house. They sent Austin to private school. And they did all of it by borrowing, by maxing out credit cards, by taking loans they couldn't pay back. I was supposed to be their golden ticket. The smart daughter. The one who got the scholarship. The one who would make it big and then send money home to fix everything. But I didn't. Because when they stole my college fund to save Austin, again, I realized something. I was not their daughter. I was their investment. And investments are only valuable when they pay dividends. The insults were never loud. They were structural. Small cracks in the foundation designed to make me collapse. When I graduated with honors and got my first engineering job, my mother told people I was a secretary. When I published my first paper on fluid dynamics, my father told his friends I worked in a hardware store. When I moved into my own apartment in Pittsburgh, my mother said I was renting a room in someone's basement. They erased me. Not out of cruelty, but out of fear. Because if people knew I was successful, they would ask questions. They would ask why I didn't help the family. They would ask why my parents were still struggling if their daughter was a mechanical engineer. And then someone might dig deeper. Someone might ask about the college fund. But the real structural failure happened 2 months ago. I was home for Easter. My mother pulled me aside in the kitchen. She slid a folded piece of paper across the counter. It was a loan application. She said, Austin needs $40,000 to start a business. He's finally getting his life together, Jenna. But we can't co-sign. Our credit is maxed out. We need you to do it. I looked at the paper. I looked at her. I said no. She blinked like I had just spoken a foreign language. No? Jenna, he's your brother. Family helps family. I put the paper back on the counter. I said, family doesn't steal from family. You took my college fund. You told me it was for medical bills. I found out 3 years later it was for Austin's legal fees. You lied to me. You used me. And now you want me to do it again. My mother's face went hard. She said, "You are so selfish. You make good money now. You could help us. But you would rather see your own family suffer." That was the moment I stopped being a daughter and became a threat. And threats have to be neutralized. After that Easter, my mother started a campaign. She told the extended family I had cut them off. She told the church that I refused to help with my grandmother's medical bills, which was a lie. I paid for those bills myself. She painted me as the ungrateful daughter who abandoned her family the moment she got successful. She did it quietly, strategically, so that when Uncle Mike came to town for my mother's birthday, he was one of the only people who didn't know the story. He still thought I was the golden child. He still thought my parents were proud. And when he announced my success in front of everyone, he didn't realize he was detonating a bomb my mother had spent years trying to defuse. Uncle Mike was still staring at my father, waiting for an answer. My father looked at me. His eyes were desperate, pleading. He said, "Jenna, please. Not here. Not now." But I wasn't stopping, because I realized at that moment that this was not just about the money. It was about a lie. It was about the story they told to justify taking from me while giving everything to Austin. It was about the years I spent believing I was the problem, the difficult one, the ungrateful one, when the truth was simpler and uglier. They chose him. They always chose him. And they needed me to stay quiet so no one would ask why. I looked at Uncle Mike. I said, "It's true. Every word." My parents withdrew $127,000 from the education fund my grandparents set up for me. They used it to pay off Austin's debts. And then they told me the fund never existed. They said I must have misunderstood. They said Grandma and Grandpa only left money for Austin because he needed it more. Uncle Mike's face went from shocked to furious. He turned to my father. "Donovan, your parents set up equal funds for both kids. I helped them set it up. I was the witness on the paperwork. Don't you dare tell me it didn't exist." My father looked like he was going to be sick. He said, "Mike, it was complicated. Austin was in trouble. We had to act fast. We were going to pay Jenna back." "When?" I said. My voice was calm, but it cut through the room like a blade. "When were you going to pay me back, Dad?" "It's been 6 years. I paid off my student loans last year. I didn't get help. I didn't get support. I got lectures about being selfish because I wouldn't co-sign loans for Austin." Austin stood up. His chair scraped loudly against the floor. He was red-faced, shaking. "This is insane. You're really going to air all this out in front of everyone? At Grandma's birthday? You're pathetic, Jenna. You always have to be the victim." I looked at him. I felt nothing. Not anger. Not sadness. Just the cold, mathematical clarity of someone who has run the numbers and knows the structure is unsound. I said, "I'm not the victim, Austin. I'm the creditor. And the bill is due." The room erupted. My grandmother, who had been silent in the corner, suddenly spoke up. Her voice was thin but sharp. "What is she talking about? Donovan, what did you do?" My father tried to stammer out an explanation, but my mother cut him off. She stood up, her voice shaking with fury. "Jenna is exaggerating. Yes, we used some of her college funds. But it was an emergency. And we always planned to pay her back. She's just being dramatic because she wants attention. She's always been like this. She can't stand to see Austin succeed." Uncle Mike slammed his hand on the table. The silverware rattled. "Beverly, don't you dare gaslight this girl. I know exactly how much was in that fund. I reviewed the paperwork when your in-laws died. You didn't borrow some of it. You took all of it. And you didn't tell her. That's not a loan. That's theft." My mother's mouth opened and closed. She looked around the room, searching for allies. But no one was looking at her. They were looking at me. I could feel the weight of their stares. Some were sympathetic. Some were curious. Some were horrified. But all of them were listening. My father finally spoke. His voice was barely a whisper. "Jenna, I'm sorry. We were desperate. Austin was going to go to jail. We didn't know what else to do." I looked at him. I said, "You could have asked me. You could have been honest. But you didn't. You stole from me and then you lied about it. And then you spent 6 years telling everyone I was the selfish one for not giving you more. Uncle Mike pulled out his phone. He was scrolling, his jaw tight. He said, Jenna, when did you say you graduated MIT? December 2018, I said. He nodded. He kept scrolling. Then he stopped. He looked at my father, his voice ice cold. Donovan, I loaned you $50,000 in January 2019. You told me it was for Jenna's final semester because her scholarship didn't cover everything. You said you were helping her finish school debt-free. You said it was an investment in her future. The table went silent again. I stared at Uncle Mike. I said, what? He turned his phone around. On the screen was a bank transfer receipt. $50,000. Sent to my father. Dated January 14, 2019. The memo line read, for Jenna's education. My stomach dropped. My father's face went gray. Uncle Mike said, where did that money go, Donovan? Because Jenna just said she graduated with $83,000 in debt. So if I gave you $50,000 for her education and she never saw it, where the hell is it? My mother grabbed her purse. She stood up, her voice cracking. We need to leave. This is absurd. I'm not going to sit here and be interrogated like a criminal at my own mother's birthday party. But my grandmother spoke again. Her voice was louder this time, steady. Sit down, Beverly. Right now. My mother froze. My grandmother looked at me. She said, Jenna, is this true? Did they take all your money? I nodded. I said, yes, Grandma. All of it. And apparently, they took Uncle Mike's money too. My grandmother looked at my father. I had never seen her look at him like that. It was the look of a woman who had spent her whole life protecting her son and just realized he didn't deserve it. She said, Donovan, you stole from your own daughter. And then you stole from your brother. And then you let everyone believe Jenna was the problem. My father's hands were shaking. He said, Mom, please. I can explain. Explain what? My grandmother said. Explain how you sacrificed your daughter's future so your son could avoid consequences? Explain how you lied to everyone in this room? Explain how you let Jenna carry the weight of your failures while you played the victim. My brother Austin tried to interrupt. Grandma, you don't understand. I made mistakes, yeah, but I was young. I needed help. Jenna was always going to be fine. She's smart. She didn't need the money like I did. I laughed. It was a short, bitter sound. I said I didn't need the money? Austin, I lived on ramen and worked overnight shifts at a warehouse to pay rent while I finished my thesis. I slept 4 hours a night for 2 years. I didn't go to doctors. I didn't take vacations. I didn't have a life. Because you needed the money more than I did. He looked at me, and for the first time, I saw something flicker in his eyes. It wasn't guilt. It was resentment. He said, well, congratulations, Jenna. You succeeded. You're rich now. You sold your stupid patent. So why are you still whining about the past? Let it go. I stood up. I said, because the past isn't past, Austin. You're still living off it. That suit you're wearing? I saw the receipt on Mom's counter at Easter. She bought it for you. $1,200. While telling me she couldn't afford to fix the furnace. That car you're driving? It's leased under Dad's name. I saw the paperwork. They're paying for it. You're 32 years old, and you're still bleeding them dry. And they're letting you. Because admitting you're a failure means admitting they failed. Austin lunged across the table. Uncle Mike caught him by the shoulder and shoved him back into his chair. Sit down, Uncle Mike said. His voice was not loud. It was a command. Austin sat. Uncle Mike looked at me. He said, Jenna, I'm sorry. I had no idea. If I had known, I never would have sent that money. I thought I was helping you. I said, you were helping me, Uncle Mike. You just didn't know it was being stolen before it reached me. He looked at my father. He said, I want my $50,000 back. By the end of the month. With interest. My father's voice cracked. Mike, I don't have it. I can't. Uncle Mike pulled a business card out of his wallet. He slid it across the table. Then you'll be hearing from my lawyer. Because if Jenna wants to press charges for theft, she has grounds. And so do I. My mother was crying now loud, gasping sobs. She looked around the room, her hands reaching out like she was drowning. Please, please, everyone stop. This is my mother's birthday. Can we just stop? My grandmother stood up. She was small, frail, but her voice filled the room. She said, "No, Beverly. We can't stop. Because this has been going on for years, and I'm done pretending I don't see it. Jenna, how much did they take from you in total?" I did the math in my head. I said, with the college fund, Uncle Mike's loan, and the opportunity cost of the debt I had to take on, about $220,000. My grandmother nodded. She walked to the head of the table. She pulled out her phone. She made a call. She said, "Walter, it's me. I need you to update my will. Tonight." Yes, tonight. I'm removing Donovan as executor. I'm removing him as a beneficiary. And I'm leaving everything to Jenna. My mother screamed. It was a raw, ugly sound. She said, "You can't do that. He's your son." My grandmother looked at her. She said, "And Jenna is my granddaughter. The one you tried to erase. The one who succeeded despite you. She's the only one who deserves it." My father put his head in his hands. He said nothing. Uncle Mike stood up. He looked at me. He said, "Jenna, do you need a lawyer? Because I'll pay for the best one in the state." I looked at my parents. I looked at my brother. I looked at the wreckage of the family they had tried so hard to keep intact by sacrificing me. I said, "I don't need a lawyer, Uncle Mike. I just needed the truth to come out." And it did. I picked up my purse. I walked toward the door. My mother grabbed my arm. Her grip was desperate, clawing. She said, "Jenna, please. Don't do this. We're your family. We love you." I looked at her hand on my arm. I looked at her face, streaked with mascara and panic. I said, "You don't love me, Mom. You love what I could have done for you. There's a difference." I pulled my arm free. I walked out of the restaurant. The cool night air hit my face like a blessing. 3 weeks later, I got a call from my grandmother's lawyer. She had updated her will, just like she said. She left me the house, the savings, and a handwritten letter. The letter said, "Jenna, I am sorry I didn't see it sooner. I am sorry I let them erase you. You are the strongest person in this family, and you always have been. Build something beautiful with this. Don't look back." The house sold for $340,000. I used part of it to pay off the last of my student loans early, even though they were almost gone. I donated $50,000 to a scholarship fund for first-generation engineering students at MIT. The rest I invested. I didn't tell my parents. I didn't tell Austin. I didn't owe them an explanation. Uncle Mike sued my father. The case settled out of court. My father agreed to a payment plan. He'll be paying Uncle Mike back for the next 10 years. My mother tried to call me twice. I didn't answer. She sent a letter. I burned it without reading it. Austin sent a text. It said, "I hope you're happy. You destroyed this family." I replied, "I didn't destroy it. I just stopped pretending it was whole." Then I blocked his number. I didn't feel victorious. I didn't feel vindicated. I felt something quieter, something that took me weeks to name. I felt free. Free from the weight of their expectations. Free from the lie that love meant sacrifice without reciprocity. Free from the invisible debt I had been carrying since I was 17. 6 months after my grandmother's birthday party, I stood in my new workshop. It was small, but it was mine. The walls were lined with tools, blueprints, and prototypes. I was working on a new patent, something even better than the first. This time, I wasn't doing it to prove anything to anyone. I was doing it because I loved it. Because engineering is not about fixing broken things. It's about building new ones. My phone buzzed. It was Uncle Mike. He sent a picture. It was him standing in front of a framed article from Industry Week. The article featured my valve design. He had hung it in his office. The text said, "I'm proud of you, kid. You did this on your own. That's real strength." I smiled. I texted back, "Thanks, Uncle Mike. For everything." He replied, "Anytime. Family is supposed to lift you up, not tear you down." I set my phone down. I looked around my workshop. I thought about my parents. I thought about Austin. I thought about the years I spent believing I was the problem. And I realized something. They didn't steal my future. They just tried to. But I built it anyway. I built it from nothing. From night shifts and ramen noodles and loans I paid off myself. I built it from anger and determination and the stubborn refusal to let them define me. They wanted me to be small. They wanted me to be grateful for scraps. But I became something they couldn't control. I became successful. And that success was not theirs to claim. It was mine. I picked up my wrench. I got back to work. Because the best revenge is not burning down their lies. It's building something so big, so undeniable, that the truth becomes inescapable. And I was just getting started. If you've ever had to walk away from people who tried to steal your future just to finally build your own, leave a comment. Let's remind each other that we made the right choice. Some foundations are too broken to repair. Sometimes you have to demolish the whole structure and start fresh. And that's not failure. That's engineering. Thank you for listening. See you in the next one.